got it.
Possible by Wix. If you
Oh
are ready
boy,
to
what
create a
am I
website, head
about
over
to
to
see?
wix.com/go/infographics to try out one of their premium plans right now. Backed by popular demand, we bring you another show of
Popular
unimaginable
demand?
punishments
Okay.
authorities have meted out on criminals and people deemed a threat to government, rulership, or even religion. While crushing people's heads in medieval vices certainly doesn't happen anymore, the world is still home to some barbaric punishments today. Even in the most developed countries, you have things such as waterboarding or the brain wreck of being imprisoned in isolation. Caning, which
That's what FBI does, huh?
still happens in some
Oh,
countries,
okay.
has been called beyond excruciating, while being stoned to death, we can imagine, must be an awful way to go. In 2008, reports emerged about a 13-year-old Somalian girl that had been buried up to her neck and stoned to death by 50 men. Her crime? Reporting a rape. Today,
Okay, that's just yikes. Stoned to death is what happened in Rome, if I'm not mistaken. If a warrior was a part of the legion and he didn't follow the commands, I know also that like his fellow soldiers would beat him with the sticks to death.
we'll explore more insane meanness.
But
in
that's
this
why
episode of
Rome
the
was so
Infographics
like
show,
big.
Worst punishments in the history of mankind, Part 2. Number 10, the Brazen Bull. Also known as the Sicilian Bull, this brutal punishment was around in ancient Greece. How do we know? The Greek historian
Isn't this Matador
Diodorus
like the
Siculus
Spain that
wrote
has
about it in
right
one of his
now?
many history books that
The
covered
event?
various cultures of the time. He writes that a
Or what
bull
is it
would
called?
be fashioned
Not
out of
Matador,
bronze to almost the same size as a real bull. There was a door in the side of the thing through which people who were given the death penalty would be shoved. A fire was then
Bullfighting,
lit
yeah.
under the bull and the person was roasted to death. It's even said that the bull was designed in a way so that the screams would be emitted to onlookers. If this sounds bad, well, by the end of the show, you might be thinking it wasn't such a bad way to die after all. Number 9, Iron Maiden. You might have already heard of the name if you're into heavy metal music. The band got their name from a torture device. Like many contraptions of torture, historians dispute when and how it was
it's
used,
the metal
but you
lady,
can
huh?
certainly find Iron Maidens in museums today. It's
Bruh, like why?
thought that the first of them was a 14th century Germanic invention, but throughout the following centuries, many historians would write about these devilish things. They kinda look like an Egyptian mummy, but the inside of the door is festooned with spikes. When it's closed, the person in the casket is impaled. As we said, some historians write that these things may not have been used or used often, but they certainly existed. Others write that they were talked about a lot in
Okay, let's be honest. One psycho probably used such a device. Like, why would you create it? Of course, it's the torture.
18th and 19th centuries to show how barbaric people used to be and how much better they were in their era. Number 8, Crucifixion. We probably should have included this in the first show, as it is a terrible way to
Literally
die.
Jesus.
As you'll know from this video was made
What
possible
the
by
fuck
Wix.
happened?
If you're on the inside of the show, as it is a terrible way to die. As you'll know from reading Christian history, crucifixion involved tying or nailing a naked person to a wooden beam. The person would then be left to die slowly. That's how Jesus Christ ended up. What you might not know is that there were many ways to crucify a person. Perhaps a good scenario was being nailed to a tree, but much worse was being impaled on a spike and left to die. Even in ancient history, some people thought this was too much, with Roman philosopher Cicero calling it a most cruel and disgusting punishment. If you didn't die of shock or sepsis or dehydration, then the animals around might feast on you. You might also not know that it wasn't just popular in ancient times. The Japanese crucified people in the 16th century, the Burmese
But that was because they didn't like Christians, so.
in the 19th century, and in some parts of the
Why? Oh, they probably had like some stupid ruler. Although it's Burma, it's not Siam. What? Okay, it's kind of
Middle
crazy.
East, crucifixion is still a legal punishment. Number 7, Spanish
Oh wait, illegal
donkey.
or legal?
This is a donkey
What?
no man or woman would ever want to ride. If you saw our first show, the way someone would be tortured is similar to that of the Judas cradle. Prisoners would be sat on what looks like a triangular
Now, how do I see this? Remove the nails, like it's shown, and kind of like make it not like a triangle, but like the sort of shape, and it kind of gets a different purpose.
shaped block
Oh,
of
no,
wood.
no,
This
no.
wood might have nails on the ridge. They would be lowered down onto the sharpened ridge and sometimes pulled down by weights, which would cause excruciating pain. Some sources say this could result in the person being cut apart and dying, others
no,
say
no,
it
no.
just crippled a person. The French called it the chevalet, or horse. A History Channel documentary says such a device was used during the American Civil War to torture Confederate prisoners. These prisoners would pass out from pain and sometimes be disabled for life.
French are
Number
really
6,
true.
breast ripper. These awful things look like two pronged forks, similar to the
So are
fangs of
you.
a snake, except they were made from iron. Featured in the
English
book
people
Victims
are
and
too weird.
Values, a history and a
Everyone's
theory of
weird.
suffering, it said they would be heated up and then used to rip off a woman's breasts as a punishment. This would cause severe scarring and the loss of breasts, but the infection that ensued would often kill the woman. The website Medieval Times and Castles writes, this instrument was mostly reserved for women
Bro,
accused
what?
of conducting a miscarriage or those accused
Oh
of
hell no,
adultery.
I'm gonna
There
skip
are
that
some
shit.
reports that ISIS used a similar instrument apparatus that may have been used only to scare the living daylights out of a populace. Jigsaw, from the Saw franchise, would have been envious of this chair had he been real, of course. We actually found one of them on a museum website with the present owner listed. So
We
they
ruled
did
the
exist.
empire.
The chair is made from wood with 12 steel blades in the arm, back and footrests, and seat. It's said in Europe a chair was used, although we refer to that
Everyone
simply as the
likes
iron
it.
chair. This might have had 500 to 1500 spikes for the victims to sit on. Sometimes hot coals would be placed under the chair for added pain. One historian writes, the spikes did not penetrate vital organs and blood loss was minimized, at least until the person was released from the chair. We can't imagine the outcome was good once the prisoner was released. Number 3, Chinese water torture. You might be thinking, what is this doing here among instruments that cause extreme physical pain? Well, perhaps being sent crazy, slowly, might be even worse than losing a body part or two. The torture consists of slowly dripping water on one part of the head, and apparently, after enough time, this will become absolutely unbearable. It didn't last long at all.
True, I know
After
that
not
one
even
actually.
2 hours, he asked the experiment to stop, complaining of
Yeah, that shit is kind of crazy.
claustrophobia
Imagine what water can do. Oh,
and shoulder spasms, and saying he was stuck in a beam or tree inside a kind of
kind of
torture.
skipping.
The problem with this is the fact that
This
it
is
took
literally
him
from
ages
Star
to die.
Wars.
It was very popular in the Middle Ages and used to scare
Isn't this
people
like how Ahsoka was trapped in one of the Clone Wars episodes?
away from committing
While
crimes.
Kenobi was in the
Victims
mines.
would be hung up from a beam or tree inside a kind of coffin, a wooden prison with holes in it. It would be so small that the person was bent into a painful position. They were then just left
Yeah.
there. People might throw stuff at them, prod them with sticks, etc., and they would stay there until they slowly died. Even after death, they were left
I wonder
there
what would
until
kids
the
do
birds
if
had
how they
picked
saw
apart
this.
their flesh, and there
I
wasn't
would
much
guess
of
they
them
would
left.
just take,
The lucky
like they would go like here, take with hands these like bars and they would just start shaking.
ones were allowed down alive
Oh,
if their
God.
crime wasn't so bad, perhaps. And finally, number 1, Scafism. One of the more creative tortures that has ever existed, this Persian method of execution is like no other. According to the book One
Oh,
Bloody
look up.
Thing After Another, the world's gruesome history, the victim was forced to eat a large amount of milk and honey, so much he would throw up, attracting ants and vermin. He was also covered in honey. Apparently, most of this honey would be smeared around the eyes, nose, mouth, and genitals, and also in the ears and the anus. He would then be tied between two boats in a stagnant piece of shallow water, where he would be feasted on by all manner of insects and four-legged scavengers. One Byzantine historian
Bruh.
wrote, moreover, his belly, distended as it is with milk and honey, throws off liquid excrements, and these putrefying breed swarms of worms, intestinal and of all sorts. Thus, the victim lying in the boats, his flesh rotting away in his own filth and devoured by worms, dies a lingering and horrible death. He is basically eaten from the inside out, or he might be lucky to die sooner than that. One of the most cruel punishments we didn't include in this list is forcing someone to browse through the thousands
Oh, okay, nice ad. I mean, let's be honest with this one. Like what it says, it's like about bacteria mainly. And current day, people like, I don't know, like they eat different stuff. They're like, how do I say this? Their internal organs are kind of different from what they used to be. It's just kind of, I don't know. I don't know. By the way, why would you throw up when you drink a lot of milk and honey? I mean, yes, I would understand like it's like disgusting. You would want to vomit, but I mean, warm milk with honey? Taste that. Well, at least you don't have to drink blood.